Logan has finally showed his true colors. Just kidding, we all know of one or two of the scams that Logan Paul's pulled on his audience and even his friends, but just recently, some more stuff has come out in great detail. We find out just how bad Logan Paul tried to bury George Janko's career. George Janko just released a podcast starring Mike Majlak where they shed some detail on some of the really heavy topics that were the reasons why George left the Impulsive podcast. He gave some specific details that Logan then came right out and said were lies. All of this is kind of weird because on a business aspect, they both have some points here, but on a friends aspect, none of this makes sense. George Janko and Logan Paul have been friends for years. George starred on the Impulsive podcast along Mike and Logan for 15 months before any of this happened. In the beginning, Mike, George, and Logan seemed to vibe pretty well, but then things started to get a little rough after some incidences occurred on set.
You might want to give him his 2-week notice. That's the question, dude.
Honestly,
Jeez.
what do I need a therapist for then?
Jesus isn't doing it for you, and I
what do
believe
I need
you're
a therapist for?
from the bottom of my heart. I'm sorry.
Things got a little bit rough in paradise as fans started to notice that George was starting to get pushed out of the podcast, being seated in places he wouldn't get noticed, basically making him a glorified prop on set before he was eventually fired. Or as Logan would say in the video we're about to watch,
I got fired.
George did not get fired. He quit.
George and Logan were friends for years, like I said, and it seemed like their friendship sparked from a genuine place. As George explained his interactions, it led him to be viewed as an idea man for a lot of other popular creators.
And I finessed my way into getting his number. Like, I talked to him for like 10 minutes and I was like, yeah, dude, so like I got this and this, and I could sing, I could dance. Somehow or some way, he still doesn't even know why, but he gave me his number. And then the next day he just texted me, he's like, yo, do you want to come over? I'm shooting this thing. I need help shooting the video. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm on my way there. And I went there and I'll never forget this, Mark. I'll never forget this. I'm holding the video for Liar Liar Pants on Fire Vine, where Jake lights Logan's pants legitimately on fire. And I see this kid running into the pool because he's burning his legs. And I'm like, this motherfucker just put his body on fire for a freaking video? Are you stupid? And then I realized they make money off of this. I was like, okay, light me up. Let's do this. And that's how we started our friendship, is me finessing Logan Paul's number. And then that's how he introduced me to his brother, and then his brother introduced me to other people, and then like...
Now, I'm sure most of us specifically don't look for friends with high following just so that we can show up in their videos.
I need some friends, like, really bad.
And you can argue that friendships based around those factors will always remain about those factors. Money is what I'm saying.
Money!
Heard the term best friends forever, right?
Yeah.
Well, that is unless they owe you money.
We've all heard the saying that we're the sum of the 5 most people we hang around with. That's true to a certain extent, but when you really look at it subjectively, if you only ever hang around with people that you want to gain from, you'll never be valued by them more than the thing you're valuable for to begin with in the first place. What I'm saying here is that in life, if you purposely and specifically put yourself in a place that other people can punch down at you from, then they will always take that chance to punch down at you, as it always makes their life easier, and it's always been the way it was for them. Now, let's fast forward a couple years and see what money's done to corrupt this friendship. Rather, what it's done to corrupt Logan Paul, in my opinion. Let me just say for a quick second how I think it's hilarious how Prime is already being discontinued and not being restocked everywhere I can find in Canada. Completely being taken over by Gatorade and Powerade again, you know, the drink Logan Paul said Prime was way better than. Okay, so George and Mike just sat down on George's podcast to address a bunch of instances that happened on Impulsive that were basically framed to make George look out of character. This is the first time we've seen George and Mike in the same room since George decided to leave the sinking ship that is Impulsive. This podcast is 2 hours long and has a bunch of value in it, but today I'm only going to be covering the 20 minutes that covers the Impulsive incidents. Okay, so the first incident that was mentioned was the Bobby Lee podcast, where George got up and walked out of the podcast mid-episode. From the surface, just watching the podcast, this looked like George just made a bad decision out of insecurities and maybe a little bit of jealousy too. But we should all trust ourselves enough to know that anything that Logan Paul puts his greasy fingers on when it comes to media is probably not going to be framed in the exact way it happened in real life.
Real. Now we're doing real.
Yes.
Let's go back to the real. Okay. There are certain.
He is clocked out.
Yeah, I know.
George has been under a tremendous amount of abuse. No, stop, George. I want you over here with me. George, I want you over here with me. Chase him down. Go. You find him. George, no, go get him.
Okay, so it was literally jarring for the audience to see George just walk out like that. Out of the 3 hosts on that podcast, it's clear that George was the most headstrong. And for George to walk out all edited in that podcast like that put a lot of the viewers on high alert that something may be going on behind the scenes that we didn't know about.
That's not, and this is where we probably have to get into the material. Yeah.
Okay, the Bobby Lee situation.
Who was the first person that jumped off the couch and said, George just left, that was not good, we have to fix this situation?
But did they not cut shit that you should have stood up for me and said, hey, you can't cut that shit? That's gonna make him look like an idiot for leaving.
Okay, let's slow down, and I'll answer that. We have always cut. This is all help.
So yes, the episode with Bobby Lee was cut, mixed up, and made for George to look like he was completely wrong, when in fact it was Bobby Lee that was wrong. Now, Mike responds to this with the most wild position. Apparently, they edit the podcast in a way that protects their guests first and foremost, instead of, the people that are there every episode.
We have numerous times on the show, which I'm sure a number of shows do, cut things that we believe will protect the integrity or reputation of the guest.
That protected nobody but him.
No, of the guest. That's what I'm trying.
Well, what about the guy that you break bread with, bro?
But
it's absolutely understandable to want to protect a guest to a certain extent, but when it comes to the actual expense of your co-host, then what the heck? I knew we were all expecting some lows from Logan, but even this, man, throwing your own friends under the bus just to be friends with somebody that occasionally comes on your show. The fans could smell this a mile away and started to comment bomb all of Impulsive's recent videos with comments about George. That they started to censor because rather than listening to the people who, watch their show and give them views, they would rather just look the other way and ban anybody who speaks out in the comments about what the heck just happened to George.
They were all flooded with my comments. And don't think I didn't see you guys take my name out. And you guys shadow banned my name. Fans would screenshot shots of them trying to talk about me, and you guys were banned my name.
Because we probably didn't want that conversation over fucking hauling the entirety of the show.
But also, it's like, bro, I walked away without saying a thing, and you guys are on the podcast saying this gets no views.
We removed a number of things that you said on the podcast.
Name one.
Well, no, I'm not going.
Booty, bro.
No, I do want.
Eat booty, bruh. I'm totally stealing that. That is hilarious.
This was an episode that was you, and what happened to you, and then the whole world thinks that I walked away because I can't take a joke. That's fucked, bro.
Well.
Yeah, I sure as hell thought the same thing, because it's edited that way. Viewers on YouTube really just have to trust that the videos are edited in the correct timeline. And in this case, we kind of now have proof that they most definitely weren't. I mean, George said that if all of the clips were to be left in the podcast unedited the way it was actually shot, it would have shifted the narrative of George to actually being innocent in all this. Trigger warning for the next part, by the way.
I've tried to make peace to them behind closed doors. I try to reach out. I try to be cool. But by the way, and I'll just say this, we'll just empty it out. I never had a problem with Bobby Lee.
No, he knows
I had a problem with the way that Logan and you were kind of gassing him to keep doing. He started the episode putting his balls in my face. I let that one go. Then every 2 seconds, he kept grabbing my dick.
I don't think...
How would you feel if a man that has his back completely towards you, that only turns around to grab your dick,
right,
talk shit to your face, and you can't smack or beat the living brakes off of this guy? Because Logan makes me apologize to this man, or I don't have a job on Impulsive anymore.
Okay, hey, wait a second. That's insanely illegal and really incredibly screwed up. Why wasn't it an option just to not post the episode? Or at least have all of the parts where Bobby Lee did that shit in the episode, because either post it, or if it's not worth posting for legal reasons, or if it's worth cutting up for legal reasons, maybe it's just not worth posting altogether. The fact that they screwed over George so they could have a good standing with Bobby Lee is crazy. I meant incredible, but it's also crazy because, dude, I would have left him in podcast. Impulsive. Why do I keep doing this? But seriously, if this would have happened to me, I would have been outie. Just to clarify, this Bobby Lee incident is alleged, but it becomes a little more confirmed once you do see the one clip they left in where Bobby does go for George's thigh, and even then, it looks like that was just a miss. He actually probably, I can't say that it was for certain, but seeing George's trauma kind of sure does bring a lot of it into question. Like, maybe, did it happen? Probably did happen, right? Any person in their right mind would have got up and absolutely leveled Bobby Lee, because this is most definitely sexual assault and so insanely inappropriate.
How fucking crazy is that?
I don't think I understood. I can only speak for myself.
Bro, it's not a group chat.
I hope you can understand
it's not a group
that.
chat.
No, I'm talking
And when I asked him
about
point blank,
I'm talking about during the episode because I didn't know that you were feeling.
But after the
type of
episode,
way
do you
about
remember
it.
when you called me? And I said, Mike, this is all that happens. And you said, verbatim, you said, it's our fault for not telling you this, but me and Logan are really the ones who should be talking to the guest. You are really there for a boys only episode. So while I get sexually harassed, my other co-host is trying to fire me, and you're trying to leverage me to be quiet during other guests. And then on my birthday, you guys shot 3 episodes, so I couldn't show up.
I just think
On my 30th birthday, you shot 3
think-
episodes.
I
bro.
think
That's
but
crazy.
I
It was on the
think-
calendar for months.
So not only was George being made to endure sexual harassment, not being taken seriously in the show he was a main host of, and on top of all that, he was being gaslit into being silenced under the threat of losing his job. All for what? Being a good person? Just trying to be a part of the conversation? Absolutely unbelievable. George is obviously very successful now that he's left Impulsive, but it doesn't take away the fact that he was literally just put there as a punching bag. Most likely they put him in a place that he couldn't grow, therefore made the other hosts look better in contrast, which is a horrible thing to do to your friend. Man, I didn't even mention the fact that they scheduled 3 full podcasts on George's birthday when they know he couldn't make it. I mean, geez, that's such a rotten thing to do to your friend. It really is. But on the other hand, this is business, and a lot of people could take the stance that, hey, it's just business when Logan schedules 3 full podcasts on George's birthday when he couldn't make it. But a lot of other people could argue, why would he do that? Why would he host 3 full podcasts on just one day of the year, George's birthday? That seems a little bit weird as well, right?
What did you want me to do about the Bobby Lee?
I don't know, maybe not tell me to shut up after I
didn't
get
tell you
sexually
to
harassed.
shut. I didn't tell you to shut up. I never said that.
I looked at Logan, I go, Logan, this is gonna make me look really bad.
No.
And he says, I don't give a fuck what you look like. Bro, come on, dog. You were standing right next to me when he said that. Dog, nobody felt safe in that. You don't even feel safe in that.
Okay.
So like, how are you trying to make it seem like what I'm saying is nonsense?
It's not nonsense, but I just wonder.
Am I making it up more in my head?
I mean, shit, what do you expect with a friendship that at its core is rooted by success and money? It's obvious that there was some clear boundaries set, but for Mike to stand by and let this all play out to George like it happened really did play a role in making it worse for him. But hey, all in the name of self-preservation, am I right, Mike?
But when I got pushed out, and I'm seeing that I'm getting pushed out, and I start my own show, do you know what my final straw was?
What?
I got my show going, and then not only was I controlled and pushed around on Impulsive, but then Logan's making calls and directing my show. And I'm saying, hey man, you can't tell me what to do on my own show. That's not okay.
What's that about?
He told me that I couldn't take Celsius. And then I said, hey
He
man.
didn't tell you that you couldn't
I have
take
text
Celsius.
messages.
No, he didn't tell you that you couldn't take Celsius. He
He says if I take Celsius, I'm not a part of Impulsive.
Then he told you that if you take Celsius, that you cannot continue to be on Impulsive, which is the core driver for Prime, as you're going to continue to funnel viewership from the Impulsive show back to your show, which promotes a competitive product.
Yeah.
He also told you that if you wait 6 months after the deal's done, you're more than welcome to rejoin the show if you need to make money.
But they were always trying to find a way to push me out.
So, Logan literally made George out to be the bad guy, barely paid him enough to survive, and then George relied on him to put food on the table, all then while he doubles back and tries to control him after he tries to leave and do his own thing. But hold up. Logan Paul responded to this.
Not Kevin, not Dylan. Nobody fucking called me when I got fired.
George did not get fired. He quit. I'll touch on that in a second. But after he quit, I called him frequently. I reached out. I wanted to reconcile the friendship. I invited him to my birthday party and WrestleMania and even my ranch a few weeks later. He chose not to come. He also unfollowed all the people he mentioned on Instagram, which is maybe why they didn't call him. I don't know. I can't speak for them, but he still does not follow them to this day.
And then on my birthday, you guys shot 3 episodes, so I couldn't show up.
The 2 episodes he's talking about, not 3, were shot 4 days after George's birthday. His birthday's on January 3rd. We shot those episodes on January 7th. We were already in Vegas signing the UFC to Prime, and as we do, want to capitalize on the location and our use of time and energy and the guests in that city. George didn't come to work because he wanted to spend time with his family for his belated birthday, which I totally understand and we even praised.
One of the things that I love about George, he prioritizes his family and friends over anything.
Furthermore, George is going to have to respond to this because as it stands now, Logan has brought receipts to the table and George has just said words. Now, do I think Logan is innocent? No. I think that he made his podcast very unattractive for specifically George to try to force his hand at leaving.
Show going, and then not only was I controlled and pushed around on impulsive, but then Logan's making calls and directing my show. He told me that I couldn't take Celsius.
So this is the big one. Making calls, trying to make it seem like I wanted to control his show is absolutely ridiculous. As you can see right here, I was like, hey, we got to get you Prime because I saw him drinking our competitor, and he told me to call him. He was filming my reaction to tell me he took a deal with a competitor. I told him, please don't film. Like, I'd like to talk about this. I hope you're joking, by the way. The truth is, I thought it was a bad look that my best friend and co-host took a brand deal with our competitor without consulting me, asking me, giving us even a chance to match it before he signed the deal, because the audience that he's building, at least at the time, on his own podcast was being funneled directly from the podcast that I was building with him. I said, hey, dude, I understand you need to make money. The entire text is right here that I sent him after our conversation, because I did understand his position if he needed to make money, but I thought it was also a little odd because he did make $317,000 in 15 months. Regardless, I did tell him I can't have him on impulsive if he's going to take the deal with the competitor, but if after he makes the money he wants to come back to the podcast, he's more than...
Logan is just gaslighting everybody and George by saying the things they want to hear, but doing the things they don't want to see happen. Like I said though, when friendships are rooted in money, money will always be the deciding factor in that friendship. Also, I do find it a little crazy that Logan does send his friends $11 million screenshots for a 1 month earning, even if he is trying to just show his bros, you know, his successes. Yeah, read the room, bro. If your homie is making 1,000 times less than you, maybe it's not a good idea to flex your successes on them. They already freaking know you're successful. So I think George should have looked subjectively at Logan and Jake's relationship, because if Logan is willing to put money over family, then he is definitely willing to put money over any sort of friend.
We are brothers, and that's the sole reason.
But this is exactly what I'm saying. You're literally painting the picture of you are playing both sides. When it's convenient for you,
faulty comparison.
But when it's convenient for you, we're brothers. But then when it's not, you do the exact opposite of like, but we're completely separate. So like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do as well.
Because even Logan's family isn't safe from Logan's incredibly fragile ego that's about to explode at any possible second. Also, Logan, why are you flexing $11 million for any reason whatsoever when you owe the CryptoZoo victims a small portion of that to make them all happy? Logan, for every million you make and for every dollar you take away from less fortunate people, people are going to start suspecting the worst of you. Remember that. Or what, Logan? Do you just have a thing for leaving parents without a way to feed their children? Just so you can promote a golden Prime bottle that apparently was also rigged so that you didn't lose money? It's absolutely nuts that in the face of being screwed over like this, George is still willing to counter Logan with a different offer. Logan, who makes thousands of times more than George does, definitely doesn't have a place trying to use George to make money. He should be there to try to see him succeed, just as George tried to see him succeed in the first place. But not only was George treated like this by Logan, but his entire team. Like, listen to this.
You fell out and you started doing scummy moves to your friend. I called you out on it,
But I
bro.
didn't do anything.
Bro, you
What did
never
I- what
checked.
did- what-
Not you, not Caleb, not Kevin, not Dylan. Nobody fucking called me when I got fired. Not one person called me. You know what I get a call from? Logan saying, at least Mike wouldn't do this. And an hour later, calls me and they say, hey, he's trying to get this deal.
But you know why I was trying to get the deal.
I get it. It's money. But why
No,
wouldn't
no,
you?
no, no,
but
no,
why-
no.
So there, you heard it. All this happened to George, and the rest of the podcast people just stood there and let it happen. If you ask me, it's probably because the deal was sweetened for the rest of the other guys. They probably went into the friendship with Logan because it was a business friendship. They went into it with a lot more self-value right off the get-go. They didn't want to do work for free or even for cheap, and so Logan instantly valued them. But I would like to bet they were getting paid just enough to keep their mouths shut while Logan did all the BS he did to people, just as long as it wasn't to themselves. I mean, it completely makes sense when you look at how Jeff reacted to CoffeeZilla when he was just simply asking questions.
No comment to it, telling you once again, from a legal standpoint, you have to report truth. If you do not verify truths, then you're just allegations. And those then will be handled the way that we want to handle them.
Jeff was in complete save face mode as he was trying his best trying to save rich boy Logan's ass from any repercussions. And that's a lot of risk to take if you're not being paid well for it. Next, George goes on to say this.
I just don't. Not like I don't believe it, bro. It's just patterns. So you got to see the patterns. We'll use you as an example, bro. Like, I saw you go through hell over and over and over again. And guess what? It keeps happening. And it's the same thing that they put you through. I'm not going to mention what they put you through, but I watched and I would pull you aside and be like, bro, that's fucked. Like, you shouldn't be talked to like that or acted like that. So For you to sit there and be like, oh, I know what you're going through, and then try to make it seem like what I'm saying is a little bit more fabricated, I think that's gonna come back at you when the day that you finally snap and you're like, all right, I'm done with this shit. And then you're gonna see it for what it is. Because
I already see, that's the thing, I already see it for what it is, so I don't have the same type of reaction to things happening. I don't sit there and think to myself like I'm sitting in some perfect world scenario. This is showbiz, bro.
Yeah.
It's a fucked up,
yeah, you're right. I'm too
terrible
emotional.
place.
I'm very emotional.
No,
I will
and
admit
by
that.
the way, God bless you for it. God bless you for that emotionality and having that emotional intelligence that was called into question. God bless you for it, bro. You have to shed some of that, certainly, to be in that space. Yes, shit gets said to me. Yeah, I feel left out of shit. Certainly I fucking do, and it pisses me off and it makes me frustrated and saddened. Of course it does.
I just think the position you're in, and I have to say this confidently, and I hope I'm not just being a kid that's ranting. I'm literally just trying to meet the man that I used to be, which I think is you, and tell you, hey man, where you're at, there's no room for you to grow. They won't let you grow. They will not let you grow.
You know, bless this man's heart for unwilling to do anything but the right thing. Ironically, Mike doesn't see how successful George has gotten ever since he left Impulsive. Mike has to know that at least half of the audience was there to either listen to George or Mike and not Logan, so if he left Impulsive, he literally just could use the same excuse that it's just show business. Logan also made a response to this part too.
And where you're at, there's no room for you to grow. They won't let you grow. They will not let you grow.
I thought saying that to Mike was a little crazy. He's grown a lot. He has 2.7 million subscribers since we met. He's a multimillionaire, best-selling author. I tried as much as I could to help him get into those positions, and it's not entirely because of me. Mike is a phenom in his own right, and he capitalized on the platform that I gave him, which is awesome. Just like George is doing now, but if that's not growth, like what is? In fact, I think people forget, like I praised George for starting a podcast like a lot.
Georgie started his own podcast. I think it's a great idea. I always love when my co-hosts venture out and do their own things. Congratulations. It's awesome, guys. Check out his podcast.
And also saying they won't let you grow was a little hurtful because I thought at least I helped Mike do some of the things that he did, and I even encouraged him to start his own podcast.
I think you should take a page out of Georgie's book and start a show of your own.
There's no greater feeling than watching people you love succeed. I tried to give people around me a platform, and if they capitalize on it, fantastic. Mike and George did. And George will even tell you this off camera. I encouraged him to pursue media and comedy since 2015. I really believe in the kid, and I still do. There's a lot more. I'm not going to get into it, but this isn't to say, by the way, that I didn't fuck up along the way. I did. I should not have mocked his beliefs. I apologize for that. I should have stuck up for him with Bobby Lee, and I definitely should have had his back more like a friend. There's a lot of things I would have done differently, but here we are. It saddens me that our story has unfolded this way. I wish him nothing but health, wealth, happiness, all the success that he wants, and I hope that one day we can sit down and have a relationship.
One thing I want to point out though is that Logan kind of has a history of deleting bad responses from the internet, responses that the public has kind of lashed out at him for even having to begin with. So what could be the reason that he deleted this very response, if not that George is right in his podcast? There's also the fact that, like I said, George didn't delete his podcast. As of right now, he didn't delete his podcast and instead came out with this tweet that reads, there also is the fact that George hasn't deleted his podcast with Mike yet, and he also doubles down by going on Twitter and saying, hey, no need to make TikToks. Come talk with me in person. We can handle this like real men at Logan Paul. But then George deleted that tweet, replacing it with this video.
Dang. First of all, happy Mother's Day before I get into this drama, because I gotta go take my mom out. I'm having a splendid day today. Second, yo, your TikTok is cute, bro. It's cute. I get it. You're doing your best to show face. Do whatever you need, bro. Like, talk to your team, do whatever you need. But when you want to be a man, come talk to me like a man. Let's sit down like men and talk about it. Mike did it. Mike's a real man. He had the chance to come, sit, talk, show all of his points of views, brother. You could bring camera. You could bring your attorney, bro. Come sit on the couch and talk to me like a man. Let's talk, bro. Because obviously you want to talk. Let's talk. Come talk to me, bro.
I'm really not sure where this is going to lead. Who knows? But there is just a few more things I want to cover from this podcast. I really still think that Logan has done something to sweeten the deal for Mike. Maybe the way Mike speaks, maybe he made him sign an NDA. Maybe he gave him a bunch of assets somewhere that he can retire and use. You know, but at the end of the day, nobody's going to defend Logan's actions out of the goodness of their heart. Also, using the excuse, it's just show business, is extremely weak, man. Like, imagine all your friends screw you over, and when the dust finally settles, Sorry, bro, it was just show business. It is absolutely unacceptable, but at the end of the day, with this much money involved, with these kind of people, what was anybody expecting to come out of any of this? It's clear that George has a habit of letting his guard down when people get close to him. And when that happens, those people just start to use him. It's like when users have no idea they're taking advantage of people, and people who are getting taken advantage of have no idea they're getting taken advantage of until their life is just about falling completely apart. That's when the opportunist starts to gaslight their victim into staying even longer. Like George said, I wouldn't wish this treatment on my worst enemy because it should be okay to let your guard down and trust people. Apparently, you just gotta be really picky and choosy about who those people you trust are and make sure the relationships you have with them aren't rooted in money and selfishness.
I believe you did evil work on me, bro. And
What do you think I was doing? I had a pin doll at the house with your big ass fuzzy head on it, and I was popping pins in your stomach.
So this was the learning lesson that I learned.
What did I do?
I thought that if somebody does something wrong to me, that it was intentional. Because I was.
But I still haven't even found out or understood the non-intentional things. We don't have to keep harping on it, but I really, dude, was always Team George. I always was.
I think my point of view
I
was you're only Team George when it mattered for you.
Now this corroborates what I just said and shows how opportunists have no idea they're taking advantage of others because they only have themselves in mind and never stop to consider who they're going to hurt in their process. I think Mike just got slapped with a bunch of truth in this podcast, and you can simply see his silence because he's just trying to figure out how to look good on camera despite his friend trying to open up to him. Personally, I think they should have had this conversation off camera, but I mean, how else are they going to make money then? I think in a conversation like this, you can't have income and real growth happen at the same time. You have to choose one or the other if you want one to actually be successful. Sure, we the public might find this entertaining, but because this is public, Mike's responses are clearly very strategic and pulled back. That being said, I really don't think George is going to stop being himself, regardless of the consequences or successes from it. His audience is rapidly growing, and it seems like he's finally starting to realize his self-worth away from the toxic, impulsive environment.
And Logan once, he was in an argument, he's like, oh, you always bring up Japan. No, motherfucker, you bring up Japan. I don't ever bring up Japan.
We bring up Japan.
He brings it up. I
We
sling the nice
definitely
jokes.
make jokes. Yeah. I just don't, I think,
Wait, can I just say one thing, though?
I think the only way out of this amicably, and by the way, the most truthful and real way is that everybody is taking a little chunk of fault for how things went down.
I 100% take responsibility.
And same.
I think
I'm just trying to figure out
I think you guys
what
would have
those-
behaved differently
If you
towards
fucking
me.
you guys me one more fucking time.
Sorry. I think Mike and Logan, you guys would have treated me differently if I treated myself with more respect.
You are absolutely right, George of the podcast. You need to enter business friendships just like you enter job interviews. You set the tone right off rip that you expect to move up, that you know your worth. You can't be okay with being used ever, even if the outcome has potential to help you out. Because opportunists will try to never let you grow past the moment in which you meet them at.
You were one of the first people that was ever in my vlogs.
So I'm just cashing back the checks that I put in.
And
To me, it's an investment.
And I always cleared. I always paid.
No, you did. You did. I'm not saying you weren't good.
Man,
I'm
that
just saying,
sucks. That sucks. Not just with you, but I have a problem online where I am looked at and my intent is always questioned. I hate that. And it's not
Let's
just
just talk
you.
about it.
No,
it might
it's
be a
not just you.
perspective thing, bro. Listen, I'm here to talk. And also, bro, like, again, I will say this, even though I just got a little passionate, I was discussing things. I never got to discuss it. But, like, me discussing it, I just want to let you know, bro, I still think you're an amazing guy. I think it was my fault that I didn't communicate it with you. And I think that me being dumb made all my people around me dumb, and then we handled it in a dumb way. I really do. I'm not mad at Logan. I'm not mad at Bobby. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at myself. I should have handled it better.
Like I said, the only out is if people taking a share, saying, okay, this part was me, this part was me, this part was me, and moving on from that. And you look at the outcome of it, and like I said, Logan Paul, massive star, built multi-billion-dollar brand, biggest face of WWE. George Janko, huge podcast, interviewing some of the biggest minds on the planet. Mike Majlak, being evicted, trying to figure out how to fucking make ends meet. Just the co-host that gets made fun of every day. Who do you think's the real fucking loser here, George?
That's why I wanted to have you here. If you notice,
you
Belle isn't here.
I wish she was.
And there's a new spot open for my co-host. I'm not.
It's really nice to see growth on both sides here. I'll say that there is clear realization in Mike, But I just don't think that he realizes that he doesn't have to stay silent, that he does have an actual meaningful voice whenever his friends are getting abused on the sidelines. This next part is hilarious. George tries to steal Mike from Impulsive.
To have you here. If you notice,
think it was you?
Belle isn't here.
I wish she
And
was.
there's a new spot open for my co-host. I'm not just saying you should leave your job and come here. I'm just saying this show's doing pretty good for somebody that nobody watches.
Yo, I get the feeling like Impulsive is going to be the new Game of Thrones, killing off every main character every season to the point where everybody's only ever seen 1 or 2 seasons because they're so pissed off at people dying that they just want to go find a show that's more reliable to them.
Do you want a piece of this?
Yes.
You're gonna want to have to work for a year,
Yes.
no pay.
Tell Celsius I want the deal, dude. I was kidding. I really don't.
That's gonna piss Logan off. You know, going from seeing George getting the shit end of the stick in so many episodes of Impulsive to now this shows promise for the future. That not all creators are doomed to let money destroy them and leave their friends and family in their wake. George definitely has a viewer out of me now, and I'm definitely excited to see what kind of conversations he has with people going forward. I noticed that my content was getting a little bit negative, and although I do really think that it's important for me to cover people who need to be called out online, I do also think it's of the utmost importance to give quality creators as much voice as they can over people that are just in this for the brand deals and the money. If we all just gave our views to honest creators mostly, then all the dishonest creators would have to mold their personalities into the honest working method. And then maybe we could finally start cleaning up the internet and setting a standard for what is morally correct, much like we have in public settings. Well, that's about it for today. If you liked this breakdown, please let me know in the comments as I read all of them. And hey, if you disagree, I would love to hear what you have to say in my comments. And hey, if you disagree with me, I would love to see your take in the comments, because my opinion's not the only opinion. And good conversation is what leads to conflict resolution in this world. Anyways, thanks for watching my video. I hope you fall into a pit of money and retire young, and I'll see you in the next video.